Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Dead Space 3 Impossible Difficulty video walkthrough. This is chapter 14, Everything Has Its Place. So this is where the game starts to pick up on the enemy encounters. It definitely gets a lot more demanding, because I'm not going to say challenging, because every situation on this game can be tackled probably without taking a single scrap of damage and extremely efficiently. It's just doing it, obviously. This area, you're going to get a new suit, which is, I assume, the replacement of the advanced suit. It's kind of gay and nowhere near as good as the advanced suit, but I suppose that's just personal preference. It's also going to give us access to both the kiosk and a bench at the same time on a regular interval, so you've got no excuse in this next sequence of events to have any real trouble as far as weapons and ammunition, because you're going to have the ultimate opportunity to make your ensemble as strong as it can be. The scavenger bots, by this point you should have 2 to 3, so you're going to be definitely getting a lot more resources. It's one of those things where the game steps up its game, but you do as well, because you're a lot more, powerful than you were when you started the game. But over here sounds like there's going to be another one of the caches for the scavenger bot. This is going to lead into one of those identikit fucking copy paste places, which I hate. So terrible. It really is where the game design and the level design especially shows on this that it's... How difficult is it to make these little alcoves different from each other? Why do they all have to be the same? It just seems daft. It seems really daft and really lazy too. Lazy from a studio that's always done better. But it is a secret area, and it can be quite confusing because the weather and the way the draw distance works with the mist. But get back on the trail to where we need to go, because we're going to be heading into the military facility. And it's an interesting chapter, this one, because this was the first place, aside from inside the cavity, where I had difficulty. That right there, if you didn't see it, that is a twitcher. You'll remember those from the first Dead Space. You'll also remember them from the Severed DLC for Dead Space 2. They're effectively a slasher that has the ability to move extremely fast. It almost looks like he's fitting when he moves. He's really spasticky. It's kind of crazy. And they're not fully blown twitchers, but they're close enough. And they're probably the most intimidating necromorph to fight for me, because they're so fast, they're so damaging, and they will be on you in seconds, and you really need to stomp them. And there's a sequence coming up on this chapter or the next one, I can't remember which, where you take on a whole bunch of them, and it's definitely one of the most hair-raising moments of the game, just out of the fact that they're so much faster than you are. They're like the whiptails, but they slash at you instead. But you do have the tools to beat them, you do have the skills to beat them, so you shouldn't have too much of an issue. This is just a little bit more atmosphere building, which this game could have done with a lot more. That is Danik showing that he's turning up at the facility. The amazing English bad guy that does absolutely nothing in this entire game except for walk around in his extremely savvy looking white fleece and spouting nonsense, looking a little bit like Elton John with a really bad ponytail. And it's just a terrible bad guy. It's a terrible antagonist. It's terrible use of a plot device. It's just downright awful. And there is no progression for the character. There's no redemption for the character. It's just hollow and pointless. But here's another point in the direction engineering minigame. I think I could be an engineer in the future because I have that shit down. And if you can charge your own rates, I mean, space rates are probably amazing, because you had to travel 2 years just to get to a job or something. Oh, by the way, if you run up to these things and you hit them with a force gun, it will kill them before they spawn any enemies. The problem is you're going to be running into enemies along the way, so we need to get to a safe place, get away from the dude with the bone saws, and take out these stupid fisherman guys. Hate him, absolutely hate him. Here he comes. on the floor, tough as nails, as always. Here's his buddy with the bone saws. Here's another one of them. Here's the secret rifle, showing you why I love it so much. Jesus Christ, it's powerful. And I swapped to the plasma cutter to try and get some ripper action in. But whenever you see those crabs and they start moving, just take them out quickly as you can with the force gun. It's the easiest way to do it. You don't have to aim. And you will stop a bunch of enemies from spawning. Because at this point, you've probably realised that the crabs are the equivalent of the infectors from the previous game. It's just they're nowhere near as cool or as imaginative. They're kind of just like herpes that reanimate body. They're really trash. I'm not a fan. But there's the legionary suit. It's not a bad suit. The helmet's not great, as I've mentioned. I'm not the biggest fan of the helmet. I prefer the helmet on Carvers. But once again, that's just a stylish preference. Everybody's going to have different feelings. And one thing I haven't mentioned, I don't think, is the armour is cosmetic. The armours don't actually do anything different. The only one that has an ability is the one that stops you from freezing to death. And every armour suit past that freeze you to death one gives you the same ability. So if you're playing this game like the previous Dead Spaces, where you think every time you get a new suit it's going to be fundamentally better than the one before, it isn't. It's all style, guys. The defense and the damage and everything is all governed by your upgrades. I kind of don't like that. I liked it how the suits had passive abilities. I liked it how you got discounts at shop with one of them, how another one enabled you to open certain doors. I liked the nuance, the depth, and they've got rid of that for this different system. But what can you do? Visceral obviously had a very deliberate image of what Dead Space 3 was going to be, and I disagree with some of it. I'm sure many people will share my opinion on that, but for the most, this is a great game. It's a very good game. It's just, I believe Dead Space is capable of better. But this mission is effectively a science experiment. We're going to be collecting slides of the kind of like templates for this creature that's codenamed, I think, Rosetta. And I believe you've got to collect 3 different ones in 3 different parts of this area. And each one is, you know, pretty much waiting at the end of a gauntlet of encounters. Some of them involve the stalkers, some of them involve the feeders, and it all culminates in this room. And there's a pretty interesting gameplay drawback in this room too. They've buckled the stairs to get up one side and to get into the room where Ellie is. And if you look at these stairs, a toddler could climb up these stairs. It is hilariously bad. But you can't enter the room because a couple of bent stairs. And the designers actually made a fold-out access point in this building just so she can give you a keycard because you can't go up the stairs. And I assume, you know, if the door was closed and it's kind of like a decontamination area where everything else is all irradiated and shit, it would make sense. But the door is open. We can see the door. She's in the damn room. And instead, we do this contrived, put it in a box like at a bank or at a cash disposal place, and we get it from the bottom end of the window. It's the stupidest thing I've seen in a while. But this is one of the slides. This is a piece of Rosetta. Unfortunately, Rosetta is not a device to help you learn a foreign language. It turns out it's a crazy biological thing. And I believe it's one of the previous inhabitants of this planet, or this moon, or whatever. And that all ties into the extremely convoluted and ridiculous storyline, which I'm not a big fan of. But the cool thing is, spoiler alert, whatever is inside these vials, these slides of creature, you get to kill later on, which is cool. It's not exactly a fun enemy, it's not exactly all that interesting, but you get to shoot it in the face, which is a bonus. Because, you know, if you're going to play a game that they've turned essentially into an action game, it's always rewarding when you get to shoot people in the face. Not quite as rewarding as it would be to shoot Carver in the face, because he pissed me off this entire game, but sometimes you don't get what you want. And I probably should have edited this out, because I'm stood around, and nobody needs a walkthrough on how to stand around. But she's pretty much explaining right now that we've got a keycard. Look at this. How contrived is that? Unbelievable game design right there, guys. couldn't have just let us go into the room and talk to Ellie. Couldn't let us just hug her or at least touch her boob. Just nothing. Just there you go. In the tray, out of the tray. Nah, fuck off. So silly. But a lot of Dead Space is like this. Like the old games, they were almost an intricate labyrinth of spaceship corridors, spaceship rooms, you know, engineering rooms, maintenance rooms, just ridiculous rooms with stuff in them. And they were all linked together with combat, puzzles, little bits of exposition here and there, and they did such a good job of reminding you, you know, that there's mystery here, there's something interesting that you're always on the precipice of. And you didn't realise that you were just going room to room in this really engineering looking place, killing stuff and doing puzzles. But on this game, because the story is so goddamn bad, and because there's no real mystery other than how the hell did this make it in the damn game, it gets to the point where you really notice that the level design is horrible. You know, some of the enemy encounters are horrible because they just throw 50 guys at you instead of 10 interesting, you know, patterns of enemies. And the final section when you go into something called the Strange City, which some people might think is a spoiler, but fuck it. The level design there is up there with some of the worst I've ever seen. Don't get me wrong, cosmetically the game looks great, it's an interesting aesthetic, but what they have you doing is just dumb as fuck. It's unbelievably stupid. And it offended me how bad it is when I know that this game is capable of better. And it just feels really rushed. It feels like they got to this place, this interesting setting, they didn't really know what they were supposed to do with it or what they could do with it, and before they thought of an interesting, you know, way to deliver, they ran out of time, and it feels rushed and forced. But be careful on this corridor. This is once again a beautiful area filled with the ball sacks that shoot the ridiculous testicles at you. They are a one-shot kill on my character. They might not be on yours, but I would never risk it because it's just not worth it. I'm trying to cheese this one through the wall with the force gun, but you don't have to. As long as you don't rush around that corner, you should be fine. And these ball sacks only turn up in a couple of areas of the game, which is good. That being said, on Dead Space 2, I did kind of like it how when you were in an area where there were some, it was so dark you couldn't tell where they were, and it got into that point of edging forward, and it was quite scary actually because you could die at any moment and you didn't know where they were. It was a little bit cheap, but it kind of worked at the same time, and this game has avoided all that, which I'm grateful for, because it's definitely going to make the hardcore run less frustrating, because just the random ballsack death when you forget that there's one there is the worst. Oh, this is different too. This is one of the only elevators you'll get attacked on, so you need to be aware and you need to kill these guys. And just be aware that if they hit you, and they can quite easily in this sequence, they do a lot of damage. Like, especially if they hit you with all 3 bits, which can be very rare to do, but it does happen. Oh, a bit of plasma cutter, trimming them down to size. There we go. And then another one of these silly engineering boxes where we have to flick the switches and stuff. And on this one I think you've got to get both the arrows in the green area, and that's the only thing that makes it remotely challenging. The fact that you've got to do both. So there's probably a really quick way of doing this. I just don't know what it is. So instead I flick all the switches all the time and get there in the end. It's not efficient, it's not, you know, puzzle solving, it's just trying to force the triangle shape into the square hole and actually managing to do it because I'm a grown man. I am curious who thought this was a cool idea though, because I don't know, I think there's so many better ways to handle little puzzles like this or little mini games. But Visceral's track record for minigames is a little shitty, because if anybody played the Xbox Live game, which was nothing but minigames, they were so fucking bad. The racing one especially, the racing one is one of the worst pieces of game ever conceived. There is nothing redeeming about that game. I really don't like it. And look at this guy, stupid fisherman dudes. He just walks through a buzzsaw to whip me with his stupid back tentacles. If you play this on co-op as well, while your buddy's doing the box, you have to fight a whole bunch of those guys, which is not very fair. But if you've got a force gun, they'll spend more time on their ass than anywhere else. Another one of the main tenets why you should always be using a force gun. Such a useful weapon. I mean, don't get me wrong, from the previous games, it's not the weapon it used to be because the damage just isn't there, but you're not going to use it for damage, guys. You're going to use it to put necromorphs on their ass so that you can shoot the legs off. Because you'll notice, Ripper and Plasma Cutter is effective, but they can still hit you when you're hitting them, and that's what really, really gets me. The flinch. It's almost like they've took it out. The necromorphs are just... They're just insane. Really, really crazy. They're almost as good as Isaac is at taking bullets without showing it. Because I keep making a reference to Raw Deal. And if you've not seen Raw Deal is a pretty cheesy old Arnie film where I think he goes undercover. It's been a while since I've seen it, but at the end he does this preposterous kitting up section that he always does in almost every film, where he puts on a leather jacket, a vest, he does his hair all greased back, and he gets a bag full of guns. He then proceeds to drive in a ridiculous car to a building site. He has a fight with a couple of JCBs, and then he ends up going into this place and shooting the shit out of everybody. And there's a beautiful section where he's shooting someone with an Uzi or a shotgun or whatever he's got, and a guy shoots him in the arm, and the camera does a close-up on his arm being hit as he's shooting, and he doesn't even blink. He doesn't budge, he doesn't get knocked back, he just takes it and continues shooting as if nothing's happened, and it's gloriously bad. But that is what Isaac is like when it comes to getting shot on Dead Space 3. But this room here, you're not going to see... actually you might, because I think I'm going to crossfade. This room is one of the more challenging rooms of the game, because when you get the Rosetta slab, you're going to come across... I think it's 4 or 5 of the black Scooby-Doo ghosts. And there's also going to be standard Bonesaw guys. And it's just a mess. And it's a mess because not only do the fisherman guys take so much damage it's obscene, but they can transform into the additional level, the crazy Super Saiyan tentacle mode. And if you get unlucky, every single one of them will do that. And you might not have the ammo to cope with them. I know I didn't, so I ended up going back to the bench here, guys, after I'd cleared this room, and I bought a ton of ammo. So you're going to see a transition coming up where I go from having maybe 6 shots in my Seeker to having 60 shots in my Seeker, because I came back full business, pissed off, and ready to kick some ass. And there is nothing stopping you doing that with every section of this game. I was just trying to challenge myself by not buying ammo, but this room, I died 5 or 6 times, and it pissed me off severely. So what happens here is, as soon as you take this way, that vent to your left is going to go through. There's also going to be a spawn directly where I'm throwing this to. He's going to come from that way. It's going to be a fisherman. This guy's a standard scientist guy. Behind you is a wrench dude, one of the black necromorph wrench guys. He's a dick. You'll notice he didn't transform, and that gave me a lot of time to manage this guy, even though he just punched me, because I'm crap at this game. There's the dude with the wrench crawling towards me. Luckily enough, the Seeker's stasis ability, because I've got the stasis coating on, turns it into an absolute monster of a weapon. And you just want to keep your space, keep your force gun, don't panic, and you should be fine. Like, just then, transforms into that stupid back tentacle, and it hits me with one of those cheap projectiles. I hate that transformation. Absolutely hate that enemy. But this is one of those rooms where you think it's got to end at this point, and then they throw another couple guys at you. It's really unnecessary, especially if you're having a hard time, because when you're having a hard time, everything is magnified. But I think we've killed everything. There might be something stuck behind a cupboard somewhere, because sometimes that happens quite a lot. But for the most part, I think we've done it. And that looked simple, didn't it? It looked, you know, I took a cheap hit, I came back, killed a lot of dudes, looked pretty easy, a couple of minutes, but I died about 5 times in this room, and each one of those battles was, it felt like it took half an hour. It felt like just monstrous. It's really difficult. And I'm sure if you've got more armour and more life, you can take a bigger beating than I have, and if you have more ammunition than I did on my initial few attempts, you're probably going to have a much easier time too. But that is one of the toughest rooms for me. I had a challenging time in there. But there is one piece of the Rosetta thing, and it's time to go collect the next one. I could have gone up the lift there, if you're wondering, but at this moment in time when I was recording, me and Ed had not done paleontology, so I didn't want to go there because I'd ruin the game for myself. Because this is the first walkthrough that I've actually played through co-op for the first time before I made the guide, and it was a big mistake. because it took forever to do it thanks to busy schedules and what have you, and it just wasn't efficient. But it was an extremely fun time, and anybody enjoying the Dead Space content on the channel, I'm going to be doing a co-op playthrough, which is hopefully going to be ridiculous and stupid. I'm not going to upload it as quick as I did this one. I'm going to stretch it out a little bit so you can enjoy it, and it's just going to be a little bit more content from this decent game. So we've now got 2 of the research bots, which I should be throwing out, because the ration seals, I cannot stress how important and how useful they are at saving just the mundane task of finding the caches. They really do make the game much simpler. Unlike the loading on the doors, which pisses me off to no end. Ooh, we might be about to get shot here. If a guy's got a rocket launcher... You see, look, I'm changing to geology because I don't want to go to paleontology. So let's watch. If we see a laser sight, I know where we are. No laser sight. You come back through this area later on when the extremists turn up. This is going to be stalkers. It's going to be stalkers outside, I believe. So this is another one of the cache corners. This has got a soldier who kills himself, which is interesting. And if you see a soldier do that, it generally means there's going to be necromorphs in this area, because it means that it's been populated with enemies. So when you go into one of the crevices to pick up some ammunition, you're going to get attacked. So now that you know it's coming, just trigger it, deal with it, stomp the bodies, get the ammo. Job's a good one. When is it going to happen though? Is it this one? No? Interesting. It just happened then. I heard it. There we go. There's another one of the really ridiculously close spawns that this game loves to do to you for some reason. He's still going, him. He needs to be taken... Oh, there we go. Look at this gun, guys. Just look at this gun. Oh, so devastating. So much fun. It's just one of those things where when they originally came out with the fact that you could combine 2 weapons, I didn't really understand how it was going to affect the gameplay. And it affects the gameplay a lot, because it gives you a lot of choice, but when you're playing on this difficulty level, you realise quite early on that a lot of the choices just aren't viable at all. You've got to really commit to them to make them useful, and anything that you have to commit to on this game can be a struggle, because early game you need something that works, and you need something that works and is reliable. That right there is a stalker. That generally means I'm going to take this room real slow, because on this game they can pump iron, you know, because it's like I'm coming. No, they can jump out of the snow, bang next to you and kill you, and it's so stupid. It's really stupid. They can also jump out of the walls for some reason. I don't know how they've picked up these talents, but you'll notice they're everywhere being cheeky bastards, so just watch them. I back up here because my logic is they can't jump out of the snow if there's a bunch of steel grating on top of it, and they can't come from behind me because it's too far away. So the only way they can come for you is directly in front. This is going to take a little longer than is desirable, but it's safe. So use yourself as bait. Pretend to be Dutch from Predator when he's going forward, luring the Predator into the trap, and hopefully we'll get a couple of bites. And the music really pisses me off on these sections, because whoever's playing that violin, he's having a serious fit, and he just keeps doing it. It's like, I get it, dude, this is meant to be scary, you don't have to destroy the strings. But these are some of the most tense moments, because you know, if they run at you and hit you, you're dead. Nothing you can do about it in my situation, it's just a kill. Nothing at all. But I do recommend using the claws against them, but just be aware that sometimes it doesn't kill them. And sometimes it doesn't even stop them, they just run through it. Oh, there he is. And the reason why this is taking so long is because of the pathing. The enemies can't quite figure out what to do because of where I'm stood. This is essentially a doorway, and as you've seen previously in this walkthrough, when you stand in the doorway you get things like that. Did you see that? He was stood with his back to me in the open because he didn't know what to do because of where I was stood. And it completely destroys the AI's traversal of the environment, and it's something that I can't believe Visceral didn't notice. And I don't know how hard it is to program this kind of stuff, but you can completely kill, just destroy the way that this game is supposed to work just by standing in certain places. Like, look, do you see? He went over there because he didn't know what to do. And I see him again, and I punish him. Because for some reason, the AI wants to go to that corner because there's something there that when I stand back where I just were, that's where they go. And I don't get it. But it's useful, and it's helpful for us, because that means we can get a cheap kill, an easy kill, and we're not in any danger. But the music's still going. We know there's one left. He's just over there. He doesn't quite know what to do, just because of, you know, problems with how to attack us. And he's gone over where they did, but he's not got stuck on the wall. He's sat behind that crate. He's coming now, though. Don't think that killed him, did it? Oh, it did. The music's just subsided. That means it's safe. Feel free to go through the environment, stamp on the bodies, and we're going to continue onwards towards geology, which is an absolute cakewalk compared to biology. But you're going to see that in the next video. I'm just going to be stamping some ammunition. I'm going to be picking up some various things. I'm going to be trying this door that I'm not going to go through. And then you're going to see much more of this place in the second video. That right there was an artifact in the corner. Just hidden there in the little alcove. But that's the end, guys. So thank you for watching. I hope the guide's helping. And as always, you take care now.